everyone, this is Constance from Mysterious Galaxy. I'm excited because we are celebrating another book birthday tonight! Yay! So another round of applause. I'm going to do the stampede of 1,000 with my one board in front of me. And I am very excited because I love a good paranormal story. Like, there is nothing quite like a good paranormal story. It just hits the certain spot in you. I am very proud to be introducing Marlene Perez and her new book, The Afterlife of the Party. And Marlene is going to be in conversation. Yes, I was about to say Marlene is in conversation with Mary Pearson, who I know all of us know very well, the Remnant Chronicles, as well as the last duology she had came out. I know we read that for a YA book club. So thank you so much, Marlene and Mary, for joining us. And I have to point out, because I think it needs to be pointed out because of how amazing it is, but Mary is representing with the purple shirt on the purple book cover. So we have to give a shout out.
She can do a book face.
Exactly.
Purple champagne.
Oh, look at you. You have your
glass.
champagne.
And so before I pass
it's actually
it off,
water.
no one needs to know. But The Afterlife of the Party, as I was saying, it is a really fun paranormal. So just to give you, not any spoilers, but a little touch of what we'll be discussing today, we have a main protagonist who goes to a party, and, well, the party doesn't necessarily go according to plan. And it is quite literally the last party in which she is alive, and her friend is kind of taken away by a bunch of vampires, and that's not really okay, so then she has to go and try and find her friend with I'm going to use the word dashing because I like using the word dashing when there is another male who is helping our protagonist along and there are some feelings involved. So we're going to say a dashing guy is going to help her, but really her friend is helping her. She has some mixed feelings with, so there's some romance that happens there as well. And for the rest you will have to read, because I'm not going to give you any more than that. And then before I pass it off to Mary, a little bit... Sorry, I got distracted. Tiffany just said I have gold nails. I do have gold nails, Tiffany, sorry. But before I pass things off to Mary, if you guys look to the right-hand side, that is where all of the conversation is and our general chat. If you look down below, that is where it says, ask a question, and as that would imply, that is where you can ask a question. The best part of events is getting to ask authors questions. You get to pick the brain of the author, so make sure you take advantage of that while you have it. And then also, the best way to celebrate a book's birth is to purchase said book. I have no bias as a bookseller when I say this, but if you would like to purchase The Afterlife of the Party, as well as any other books from Marlene or Mary, if you click the Buy Book and Personalized Book Plate button below, then it will take you to our website where we've got a whole list of all of their books, and you can even pre-order I'm with the band. And the pun, it's so great. But that is book 2, so if you're like The Afterlife of the Party, and then you're like, I need book 2, you can go ahead and pre-order that as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Mary, and I will see you guys at the end of the event. Bye!
Thank you.
Yay! Marlene, hugs! Oh my gosh. First of all, I just want to say congratulations. I love the book. I love it. I haven't finished it yet, but I am loving it. It's like, oh, I'm back in one of Marlene's worlds. And I won't go too much into that, but and so I'm lifting my glass of champagne to you and just toasting you today because I am so very excited and so happy for you. So yay! and Constance already gave us a little intro, but I'm going to ask you again to give us these spoiler-free little synopsis of your book and tell us, the names of the main players, who the baddies are, and yeah, just give us a little glimpse of it.
The main character's name is Tansy Mariotti, and she reluctantly goes to a party that her best friend Skylar begs her to go to. And I'm sure we have all, especially the less social of us in the world, have been in that situation where we really don't want to go to a party, but our friends or someone asks us to go and we go. But when Tansy, Skylar, and Vaughn go to the party, Skylar kind of starts acting weird. She introduces Tansy to the band that's playing. The band's called the Drainers. And
You're so clever.
Oh, all the vampire puns. And before you know it, Skylar has taken off on the road with this band of vampires. And then Vaughn, who Tansy has been friends with for a long time, but kind of has a crush on, and Tansy take off after Skylar and the band. And that's kind of what the book's about. Lots of music.
I love it. I just want to say that I haven't finished it, so I cannot give you guys any spoilers on the ending, which is good because I can kind of sometimes go off on a rant or a jaunt on this. But the thing I love about this story is that it deals with some pretty heavy duty themes. This is not just, for example, I'm watching Heart of Dixie right now, and there's some heavy duty things that happen in that story, and yet Zoe, the main character, throws out some fun, snarky zingers, and it's this wonderful balance in the story that gets you like, and then, and you do that so well. You have always had this great knack with puns and snark, and so everyone who's listening, you really have to read this. It's just fabulous because this is what Marlene does so well, and she does it in spades in this book. So
my publisher describes it as snark meets dark for this particular trilogy. Yeah, it's a little darker than my Dead Is series, and so, but I have a really dark sense of humor. So, and so I think that the book kind of reflects my weird, kind of wonderfully weird, I guess, taste and sense of humor. I have a weird sense of humor, so. But I guess so do other people we know.
I laugh at like the worst times because it's like that tension, and you just have to break that tension somehow. So anyhow, you just do it fabulously. One thing I want to ask you is, this kind of takes me back to a little bit of the olden days when we wanted to kill vampires. So what made you want to write a vampire story where you want to kill the vampires instead of kiss them?
Well, I saw Melissa was here too, and Melissa Wyatt, and you guys probably don't even remember, but Mary, Melissa, and I email each other all the time, and we had this conversation a long time ago about vampires. Melissa, the 3Ms. Anyway, we had this conversation about vampires and consent. And that, like, I always wanted to write a straight up vampire novel. Like in the first Dead is the New Black, the first Dead Is book, there's some psychic vampires, which is kind of a different kind of vampire. But I had never really written the traditional vampire story. And then I was kind of reading a lot of stuff in the entertainment world and in the music world, and even just yesterday or the day before, I just read another terrible thing about a musician. And so I was doing this research, and I don't advise you guys to do this if you love a band, but I started researching the words of the names of my favorite bands and groupies. And a lot of terrible stuff came up, and it made me want to stab vampires because it was kind of this predatory relationship. And I was like, oh, wouldn't it be great if they were in a band? Because I love music. And there's like this in the Dead Is books, there was a musical jukebox that gave the protagonist clues in Dead Is. And I love music, and I'm like, ooh, this is a great way to have that musical theme throughout the trilogy. And in the trilogy, all 3 titles are the names of songs or kind of a play on the name of a song. And is also a hint about what kind of band or musical group that will be seen in each book. And so those are kind of the reasons I wanted to write a more traditional vampire novel. And, you know, I love all kinds of vampire novels. I love the vampires you want to kiss, and I love the vampires you want to kill. So I think that in the moment, I really wanted to stab some vamps.
Okay, that makes sense. I just want to tell everybody that I'm just gonna ask Marlene a few questions, and I will be taking yours. So get ready to ask questions. And let me hit that. Okay. Sorry, I haven't done the crowdcast thing but one other time, so it's been a while. All right, on to my next question. And Tansy is an incredibly loyal friend. She won't leave Skylar behind. And in your dedication, you wrote also about to the friends who I can't remember.
The friends who won't leave
it,
friends behind. To
friends who won't leave friends behind. And
you guys know who you are.
I love that theme in a story because that's such a huge part, especially throughout our entire lives, that idea of sisterhood. So tell us, what qualities does Tansy have, and what are the qualities that make a great friend?
Well, I think Tansy is a really good friend, but maybe she's not necessarily unbiased. Like, she's very emotional about her need to kind of save Skylar, even when Skylar says she doesn't want to be saved. But Tansy's really loyal, and she's kind of stubborn, and she's sensitive to her friends' kind of unspoken language. I think we've all had friends who like tell us, oh, everything's fine, but we know that it's not fine. And I think that's Tansy's sensitivity, kind of, she understands that. And I think that really that's what a good friend does. They know you, they understand you, and then they're also loyal to you, and they don't, I mean, as a woman and when I was a teenager, I had been to a lot of parties, and I'm probably not the only one, but there are a lot of things that can happen at a party to a girl. And I really appreciate friends who take care of each other in those kind of vulnerable spaces. And so I kind of wanted to write about that. What happens when, you know, your friend is going through something, and how do you help them? So that's I think you touched on a really good point too, is that even though Skylar is sort of saying, you know, leave me alone, you also know when your friend really needs help and they don't need to be left alone. And Tansy didn't take no for, well, I'm not saying everything in what happens in the story, but Tansy doesn't take no for an answer. And that's, you know, and sometimes that's the kind of friend you need too. That, you know, they listen, but sometimes they don't listen. So. Right.
And you mentioned that that has the musical theme for the trilogy. And you always come up with the best titles. Titles are like the hardest thing for me to come up with. They make me crazy, as you and Melissa know. But the next one is, what is the next title?
I'm with the band. I'm with
the band, but it's BANNED. So sort of that play on words. But do you have musical like playlists that you listen to inspire each book, or is it going to go through all three, or what do you listen to?
I do have playlists, and they're up on Spotify. I think they're public, but so I wrote the first book, and then as I was thinking about things, I didn't really know at first that all three books were going to have musical titles. And then all of a sudden I was like, of course they have to have musical titles. And then I realized that there was going to be a musical theme in each book, and it would be a different musical theme. And I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say that book 2 has a country western theme, and book 3 has a boy band theme. And I had a lot of fun with the music, but for me, it's not so much about the words, but it's like the emotion that a certain playlist kind of, if you have that playlist and you're writing and you put the music on, or before you're writing, it kind of puts you into that world and that mood. I really like this band called Sugar and the High-Lows, and they have this one song that is like Tansy and Vaughn's song. And so whenever I write a scene that's kind of like lovey or romantic, I'll usually put on one of their songs. There's like 2 of them that I particularly think of. Or, sometimes I want something that's like, there's a song called Damn These Vampires that I love. And, it's kind of fun. I have like songs that maybe just evoke something for me and not necessarily straight up say the theme. But I kind of been listening to a lot of classic country western music right now, and Dolly Parton is having a moment, and
I love her.
And so my mom, when I was growing up, was a huge classic country western fan, and so as I was growing up, I listened to Waylon and Willie and the Boys, and Dolly Parton and Tammy Wynette and Loretta Lynn and all of that music.
My God!
So it was really a nice. It reminded me of my mom, and also, I just, I love Dolly Parton. I think she's amazing, and she should be our national hero. So that kind of was for book 2. And for book 3, I haven't finished that yet, but same thing. Book 3 is A Sucker for You. And if there are any Jonas Brothers fans out there, that is a Jonas Brother song. So.
And you said it's on Spotify?
Like I think
under your name, Marlene
yeah,
Perez?
I think it's public. I'll have to check. I think that it probably is. I don't think I have 3 separate soundtracks. I think I just have one. And the other thing is like I always put like some secret name when it's a manuscript rather than something that's published, right? Like that's my secret, like your bulletin board.
That's true. Yeah. The one that I have covered back there.
Exactly.
Okay. I see that there are some questions, so I'm going to give you guys a chance, and then I will. Okay, the first one is, what part of this book brought you the most joy to write? The title?
Stabbing vampires. I know that so violent, but it was so much fun. It was because I really hadn't written very many fight scenes. And so it was really fun to write those fight scenes. And there's like a continuing joke that I can't really say because it's kind of a spoiler that goes throughout all the books that gave me like so much pleasure and joy, and it still makes me laugh every time. And there are like some dead is Easter eggs in there, and
oh wow,
yeah. And what else made me laugh? There's this one scene with Tansy and Vaughn, and they are at a thrift store, and I won't say why, but I love that scene too. So those are my favorites, but I really, really like stabbing vampires.
The stabbing, it's
which is a good thing because I have 2 more books worth of stabbing vampires. So.
Oh, good. Because I don't do that many like violent scenes in my books.
I recommend it, Mary.
In the I think it was the third. Yeah, it was the third. Beauty of Darkness. And there was a very violent scene that I wrote, and it involves stabbing, like right through the neck. And,
look, somebody found my Spotify.
And I mean, all of these things I had to, play out and choreograph and stuff.
Yes.
And it's just like, and this was somebody I really, really wanted to kill, and it was so satisfying. And I thought, you shouldn't like this that much.
It's fabulous, but that's the thing is like. I think you have to earn that payoff, right? Like you can't just.
Yeah.
Well, there's a very popular book that at the end of the series, everybody dies. Not everybody, but a lot of people die. And I'm like, oh, she was just done. She's gonna. Everybody's going. But it is satisfying, especially if they're kind of terrible. So when they're terrible,
that's the thing. Yeah. I think it's like they finally got their comeuppance, and it just feels good to let them get it in spades. So
yeah, and sometimes you have to delay that, right? Like they don't get their comeuppance right away, and you really
have to keep earning it over and over again. Yeah. You keep giving them chances, and they don't back off, and it's like. Okay, your time's over, buddy.
Yeah, and my there's like the third book is the one that I'm going to be able to finally get rid of someone I really want to get rid of.
I think I know.
Unless the editor says no, but I really want to get rid of this character. So we'll see if that happens. But yeah. So, what did that answer the question?
I think it did. What part gives you joy writing? It's like, okay, they know another side now. Maybe it's too much information. I don't know.
Backing away slowly from the stabber.
Let me get the next question. Okay. Now. Okay, control yourself, Mary. Are there any characters inspired by real life people? Not the ones you stabbed.
Well,
no. Are there any characters in the story that were inspired by real life people?
There are characters inspired by not people that I actually know, but perhaps things I read about men behaving badly, I guess, is maybe.
Yeah, you touched a little bit on that.
Yeah, like in the music world, there was some pretty terrible stuff about the way some of the musicians were treating their followers and their fans. And there was just a lot going on when I wrote that book about people in power behaving badly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is vampires have a lot of power, and
I think that's some of the attraction that people have for them. We are always attracted to power, but obviously can be used very badly.
Right. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Skylar isn't really based on anybody that I know specifically. But when I was in high school, there was a girl whose friends did not necessarily take care of her when they should have. And so I always, and I didn't even really know her very well. I mean, I grew up in a really small town and I went to a really small high school, but I just remember hearing about that. And even now I think about it sometimes. She was younger than me by a couple of years. And so I didn't really interact with her. I wasn't in any classes with her. But when I heard about it, I was like, where were her friends? Right? Like that. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of part of that little seed too, was just like your friends.
Yeah. It's funny how these things will just stick with you through,
and they'll stay with you for a long
years.
Time, right? Yeah. Yeah. So I don't put my siblings in my book. Or, but you do have to be careful because I like to eavesdrop. So sometimes I hear things and I'm like, oh, that's so good. And I might use it if I hear something. So, I always tell people, don't
you have
tell
to
me.
disguise it. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't tell me a story.
Yeah. Right. Okay, I want to get to everyone's questions, and I have some of mine to go still too. Okay, I'm going to ask you one of my questions, and I'll go back to the audience. All books are hard to write. Every time, I think once you get published, you think, oh, the next book, I know what I'm doing. It's going to get easier. And every book has its own challenges. But what was the hardest part of writing a story with vampires? I mean, did you have to do research? And I'm not saying that in like a funny way, but what was the hardest part of writing about this?
I think the hardest part of writing about vampires is that there are tons of vampire books out there. I think also in paranormal fiction too, a lot of people love vampires they want to kiss, which is perfectly fine. And I love those books too. But I think sometimes when you see that there's a book so my book has romance, but it's not necessarily that the main character is in love with a vampire. Right. And so there was that challenge, but there's also just the challenge of there's so many great vampire novels out there. I wrote this short thing about it. I'm not sure if it's out yet, but that was one of the things that I was talking about, was that there's just so many great, everybody knows, I bet you everybody could name 3 things that'll kill a vampire, right? Everyone can probably name that off the top of their head. Or they know that vampires die if they're in full sunlight, or there's this huge mythology, this huge vampire canon. And so it's really hard to kind of make it your own, but still have those characters still be vampires, right? Because you can't change it so much that they're not vampires, but you have to kind of put your own little spin on it. So
right. I think that's the hardest part. The Drainers in a band, I mean, that was, you did put your own little spin on it.
Yeah.
But it would be hard to, you kind of have to stay with the canon to a certain extent, but bring something of your own to it.
Right. Because otherwise there's nothing fresh if you're just, but I think that's one of the reasons we keep going back to Dracula. I mean, or other vampire characters, because there's just something so appealing in our psyche that we just love vampires. And I just watched, after I finished a book, I don't read or watch vampire stories when I'm writing, but I finished something. And so I watched Vampires versus the Bronx. which is a Netflix show. And I thought they really did a great job at making it a fresh take on vampires.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it still can be done, but you really have to think about it.
Yeah. When I was growing up, my favorite show that I rushed home from school to watch was Dark Shadows. And who would ever guess that they would turn, a vampire story into a daily soap opera? But it was, and everyone loved it. Even my mom would watch it sometimes. So
Barnabas Collins. Yes,
Barnabas Collins. Yeah.
I blame Dark Shadows on everything because I'm the youngest of 12, and my older sister, my mom worked because she was a single mom, and my older sister would watch that after school every day. I don't know when it was on, but I swear I was like a little
4 o'clock.
and I'd be like, oh, and she also loved Vincent Price movies. And so,
oh gosh,
from the time I was really little, I would watch like all these horror movies and Dark Shadows. I don't even remember much about Dark Shadows, but I just remember watching it with her. Yeah.
I remember the main character was Victoria, and I can't remember too much more. And Melissa, I bet Melissa knows. Yeah, I watched all of that when I was a kid. That all of the Bela Lugosi, and all that stuff. It scared the crap out of me. But it's funny because cannot watch horror as an adult. I watched it as a kid, but as an adult, I can't watch it. I can't sleep afterwards, and I value my sleep.
I'm so weird. Like I can't watch some horror. But ghosts, werewolves, and vampires I can watch, but I can't watch.
Yeah, I can.
I can't watch that creepy, realistic horror. I like, I can't watch that.
Chainsaws.
Yeah, none of that. No, thank you.
Or people creeping down dark hallways and you can't breathe because you're waiting for somebody to pop out. Can't do it. Because I have dark hallways in my house, so I just can't. Okay, let me get an audience question now. Let's see. Okay, when did your love of the paranormal begin, and how did it transition you into writing paranormal books?
That's
because I
question.
think your first books were contemporary. So how did that come about? And for those of you, I don't know that we mentioned it, but Marlene has two other series that are paranormal, the Dead Is series and the Strange Fates series. But she also had, early in her career, some contemporary. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, my first novel was kind of like autobiographical. It was about a girl who worked in a pancake house, and I worked in a pancake house. And so that was my very first novel. And then I kind of hit this the tail end of contemporary and the beginning of paranormal. But I always I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I loved The Lost Boys. I loved all of it. Like all of the vampires I would watch, and the werewolf shows, everything. Oh, look, Dead Is the New Black. Woo woo. And so I think it was just a natural thing that when I had already been starting to think about writing paranormal, and I think like about a billion other writers back then, Buffy the Vampire Slayer had a huge impact on me. And then some people ask about Twilight, but I think Twilight came out kind of right before Dead Is, a few years before Dead Is. But so it wasn't as inspirational to me as Buffy, because Buffy, I'd been watching it and I don't know, it was just really, everybody was writing paranormal, and I was like, oh yeah, 2008 is when the first Dead Is book came out, because I also had twins that year. So that is like, I will never forget the year.
I will never forget that either. I will never forget that.
Yes, ma'am.
I bow to you because you are a superwoman. I don't know how you did it, because you had like contracts all over the place that you had to, writing and not just twins, but 2 other kids. So,
oh yeah, I have 4 kids. But you know what? Everybody has the same, like, there are writers I know who have more kids than me. And, my big kids were already, like, one was in middle school and one was starting high school. So it wasn't so bad. And I mean, they still needed me to take them to soccer practice and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was everybody has stuff, like people have to take care of their dogs or their parents or, and so it's just like you do what you kind of have to do during that time. But I've always loved paranormal stories, and my mom was really superstitious. My mom's no longer with us, but she was super superstitious, and she grew up on a farm. So she had kind of like these country superstitions. So I kind of grew up like, my mom believed in ghosts, and my mom believed in reading tea leaves, and she believed in, that stuff. And so it was always just kind of in my life anyway. And there were some really creepy things that happened to me when I was a kid. Like I kind of believe in ghosts because there's some weird stuff. But anyway, I'm not going to go out and go ghost hunting or anything, but I just kind of had that whole kind of urban legend.
But you have a healthy respect.
I have a healthy respect for the possibility that there are other things out there. So it just kind of naturally happened. And I love a good paranormal story of all kinds. And I love fantasy novels. My twins are like Mary Pearson fans. They are 12 and they just finished reading the Remnant Chronicles, and they are like, "Oh, Mom, wow, can't believe you know her." And then I showed them a picture of us when they were in high chairs. Mary and I are having lunch with 2 of our friends named Debbie, and my little 2 little babies are in high chairs with us. And I'm like, "Look, you had lunch with her."
Yeah, nothing slowed you down. You just, yeah, you're amazing, Marlene. You just are.
Quit.
And well, you are. And someone here, I'm looking at the comments, and someone said 12 children. You were the youngest of 12.
Yeah, so I'm the youngest of 12. Yes. Now talk about amazing women. My mother, God rest her soul, was an amazing woman because she raised 8 of the 12 of us on her own. So,
wow.
She was tired all the time, but she was awesome.
But she was there.
Yeah.
And Melissa answered our question. Victoria Winters, it was.
Oh,
so, thank you, Melissa. Yes, she was a super mom. Marlene's mother. I'm sorry, I'm sort of going back and forth looking at your comments. So let me go to the next question.
Oh, look, and there's a Dead Is the New Black link if anybody's interested in starting my younger teen series as well.
Okay, and now the next. And I think you touched on this one a little bit too. It said, did the movie Lost Boys from the 80s inspire you at all? I love that movie, and it's totally about killing, not kissing vampires. Also, best soundtrack ever. I have not read Lost Boys, so or watched it, so I'm going to have to do that. But can you?
You know what? It's not that scary, Mary. I think you could hang with the Lost Boys. I love, the Lost Boys. In fact, in the hold on. Let's see if you can see this. Oh, it's not going to show. Okay, I'll read it. It's one thing about living in Santa Carla I never could stomach. All the damn vampires. The Lost Boys.
The Lost Boys, yeah. It's right there.
Right there. Yeah. So I loved The Lost Boys, and I also loved the kind of theme that redemption was possible in, like, you know, they were the half vampires, and I just really loved that movie. I loved it. So yes, The Lost Boys was an inspiration, and yes, it. And I loved the whole cast, and I still follow on Instagram the Lost Boys fan page. So yes.
Oh my God. So I have something to add to my binge watching
Yes.
list. Okay. And this is something we haven't talked about yet. Vaughn.
Vaughn.
One of the things, because it's sort of a friends to something more, and all the missteps. To me, that's a really fun kind of love story to follow. So tell us about Tansy and Vaughn.
Ooh, so I love there's a couple of tropes in there that I love. The friends to more, like in adult romance, it's friends to lovers, and also fake relationship. That's all I'm going to say because I don't want to spoil it, but I just love books. So in the Dead is series, the 8 books, the love interests there, Daisy and Ryan, there was not a love triangle.
Okay. All right. I thought you were going to give a spoiler.
No, in the Dead is books. So there wasn't a love triangle, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but I am a firm believer that we need to have some positive relationship in books without having, you know, one girl, 5 guys in love with her kind of thing. Not that I don't like those either, but I think that there needs to be kind of more of these friends to more is really attractive to me, because you know that person, and you grow to love them, and the attraction might be there the whole time, but I think it's just a strong basis for a relationship. So, but there's some, there's always some roadblocks, right? Always roadblocks.
Oh, absolutely. And the whole thing of, I've been married for like 2 centuries, and my husband and I are best friends, and you have to have that, that friendship. You have to like each other, not just love each other.
Yeah.
So,
like, my husband makes me laugh so much. Like, that is the most attractive thing ever. Like, that he makes me laugh, especially when the world sucks some years.
That is a talent. That is keep that boy.
So that's like, like he's more like technical and I'm more booky, but we have other things in common, and I think that's a good thing too, that you're not exactly alike, but of course I have to make life rough for Vaughn and Tansy somehow, but I don't like doing it with. Okay, so I'm a huge Roswell fan, and I also, when I was maybe like 12, I rewrote Joe's choice in Little Women because I could not stand that she ended up with an old fart. I'm 12 years old and I'm reading this going, what? And then in Roswell, like the TV show Roswell, I love that show. Like, it's about aliens, and this is old school Roswell, not the remake. And it just drove me crazy that they set up this wonderful love story where they love each other and everything's great. And then, oh wait, hot blonde shows up, and everything you learned about the love interest, the male character, it's like just disintegrated. So I rewrote some stories for
Roswell. I think sometimes those things get thrown in there. It's just sort of author ploy to keep everything stirred up.
And there's other things
logically people aren't going to act that way. You would hope not.
Yeah, or just like even if you can show me the steps that they take to get to that place, I get it. But if you completely take the basics of their character, things that they like, okay, let's say loyalty is their number one character, and then you have him cheat on his girlfriend. That first of all makes me a very angry fan. But secondly,
right.
it's no longer a belief. I no longer believe in these characters. Yeah, Max and Liz forever. Yeah.
Their motivations have to remain constant.
Yes. And also Veronica Mars, Piz, gross. No Piz. So see, I have opinions.
She has, yeah.
Did that answer the question, 100%. Or did I just go off?
Yes, I think you did. I'm glad you don't have a knife in your hand right now.
Marlene starts writing fan fiction about Tess getting stabbed as a vampire. Marlene starts writing fan fiction about Piz getting stabbed as a vampire. Piz is so cute.
DJ wants to know if I wore this shirt to match the cover. Yes. Can you see me? Because I can't see anything because the questions are up. But can you see this? Yes. I matched the shirt. I matched and I just this is really the only purple shirt I have. So I just got lucky. It has.
I have any purple? I have like this.
Have a lot of purple.
Blue. Yeah, I like purple, but I think I only have one. I'm gonna have to wear it tomorrow.
Okay, Melissa has a question here. She says, Tansy is such a great main character. Do you find there are aspects of you in your characters?
Yes.
The stabby parts.
The stabby parts. No, I kind of think I'm a loyal friend. So I think that's part of me.
You are.
Tansy has like kind of a snarky sense of humor, and I kind of have a snarky sense of humor. And I think there's always a little bit of you in any character you write, even the antagonists and the, minor characters. Like you have to figure them out. And so when you're figuring them out, what you think is a good characteristic and what you think is a bad characteristic kind of shows. So that's part of your psyche, kind of. So especially my main characters, though, because like usually they start kind of talking to me sometimes, and then they'll just like start talking. I'll be like, oh, I better start writing this down. Okay, but that's one of the good things about first person, but it's also you're limited when you're writing in first person because you're limited to only what that first person viewpoint would know.
Yeah. I'm writing in third person right now, omniscient, and it's really it's freeing. It's very freeing, but it's hard too. But it's just something I always wanted to try. So
yeah, I'm gonna try that too.
And we're getting close to, we're almost, I just want to make sure that everybody, if you have a question, go ahead and send it through. And I'm going to skip a couple of my others because I know that we have writers out there. And, and so can you talk a little bit about your writing process? One thing I do want to say, you have the most amazing work ethic I have ever seen. I mean, you will like, well, I don't want to talk about your process too much, but it's just like, I see you just grabbing bits of time everywhere that you can to, bring a book together. And so tell us about your process, Marlene.
Well, I think that one thing that I always do that this is like pretty basic, and maybe most writers do this, is you open up, if you have an idea, but you don't know where it's going to go, just open up a document, put that idea down, and then save it. Like save it for a rainy day because you might use that later. So that's like the first thing I do. And then the second thing I do is I have this little like 1K a day. So this is only good for when you're drafting like first few drafts. That's writing at least 1,000 words a day, no matter what. And that doesn't always happen, but if you kind of trick your little brain and say, okay, that's easy to do. You can write 500 in the AM and 500 in the PM. And in between, you can take the kids to school. You can pick the kids up from school. You can feed them. You can make sure they do their homework. You can do all that stuff. So if you don't have, a lot of people work full-time or part-time, and then in addition to trying to have a writing career. And so if you can set aside an hour a day, like we have a friend, Debbie Garfinkel. She gets up at like 5 a.m. because she's a full-time lawyer. She gets up at 5 a.m. and writes from like 5 to 6 every day because she wants to do that. And so I'm really boring and I don't have other things happening very often besides my kids. And so that is my thing that I do, is that's my job, is I write my books. And you have it, especially if you have a contract. So for me, once I have a contract, that means that marketing and publicity and all the people behind that book at your publishing house, they are waiting for that book. And Mary, by the way, is awesome at time management as well, because she was on tour, she was writing and doing these huge, amazing books all at the same time.
That's why I'm a little bit like crazy now.
Right. But that's the thing, is like, so I heard this really good quote, which was, you've got to want it more than sleep. I'm not saying that you need to like become Rex like Mary and I are. No, I'm just kidding. but you know, like, I know people were like,
it's time management.
Yeah, it's time management. And it's like, well, what do you want to do today? Like, kind of ask yourself, get your butt in the chair, open up a file, and even just sitting down and opening a file will help you get in there. And then I bought this thing called a Rocket Book, because I love to write by hand. Because for me, when I'm drafting, again, this is first draft, when I'm writing, it frees up something in my brain. Like, it just writing by hand. But then, first of all, half the time I can't read what I wrote. But also, then I have to type it. So I bought, it's called a Rocket Book, and you can write on with these special pens, and it's you can it wipes off, but then you take a picture on your phone with an app, and then it emails it to you. It translates it into text.
That's amazing.
And it emails it to you. And it's not 100%, especially for people with less than stellar handwriting, like moi. And I'm left-handed, so I'm always smearing stuff. But it's like $50 maybe for the pens and the little Rocket Book. And I don't always use it, but sometimes it's really, really helpful. And then I just get the email and I copy and paste it into the document that I have already going. And then you have to fix, formatting and all that. But it's still like one less step to do that, instead of like typing and writing and doing all that. So I like taking my Rocket Book and doing that. So, and I know some people have like those old-fashioned Alpha Smarts, which are little teeny.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
And they take those with them, like while they're waiting for their kids at pickup or whatever. So anything you can do to kind of maximize that writing time is useful.
That's what I find is, there's this whole thing about writing every day, and certainly nobody has to write every day. But for me, I find if I just get a few words down, it keeps this, because so much writing goes on in your head. It's not actually, on the keyboard. And if I can kind of keep it in my head and not thinking about other things, little pieces will sort of fill in. But like, next time we have lunch, you have to bring your Rocket Book. So
I will. Remind me. I'll bring
it out.
Rocket Book. Tiffany says she has a Rocket Book too. See, I love.
Oh, yeah. Do you Tiffany, do you use it to like for writing? Because you're a writer too, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so do you find your own handwriting is like the worst? That's like my problem is like my handwriting's really bad. So the poor. Oh, see, she has good handwriting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you have decent handwriting, it's a really good tool. Oh, look, Damien's mad now, Tiffany.
Tiffany, are you holding out? I never knew this.
Yeah. So I think there's this myth of like the muse, right? Mary, do you agree that the muse is a myth, that you can be inspired, but you have to work too? You can't always write lighting candles in a dark room with nobody around.
Right.
And so
yeah.
Now if that's your process and it works, that's great. But I think sometimes we have the idea that that's the way that.
Right, that there's this inspiration, and it's kind of like, you know, when I do like to light candles, and I like to put music on, I like to do all those things. That's like a treat for me when I can do that.
Yes.
But that's not the mandatory key. The key is just to get it down, get the crap down. And then,
and I like Pinterest too. I like my little Pinterest boards. Yeah. I have like secret Pinterest boards.
Oh yeah, me too.
Like, what the characters look like.
All this stuff back here is all my secret Pinterest boards.
Yeah, see, and that's really good because it ends up you have really, really good looking people, because usually you can only find a lot of photos of models and like an actor.
I know.
But
I know.
You get an idea like, oh yeah, look, my character has like really high cheekbones, or they have gray eyes. Like Vaughn has gray eyes, and I have this really good looking guy with gray eyes.
It's hard to find unusual looking characters in a lot of places, but on Pinterest, very often you can. Okay, there's one last question here because we are almost out of time, and I want to make sure that we get to it. Oh, come back here, you questions. Okay, let's see here. Have your kids helped get the slang and interpersonal interactions right as you've written about for a younger audience? Do your kids help you out?
So here is my take on slang in books. I try to use it minimally because slang grows and changes so rapidly. I'm sure you've all read a book that's maybe 5 or 10 years old with a lot of trendy stuff in it, or slang that was really, really, hot at the time, and it reads very dated. So I mean, my kids do have a lot of slang, but mostly they're little gamers. The youngest two, they're gamers and readers. And so a lot of their slang involves Roblox, which is their favorite online game. And so gaming slang doesn't usually change that much. And so I just try to not use too much of it sprinkling. So, and then with dialogue, just kind of the feeling of slang, right? There's certain like words I don't like to use. I don't like to use words that are derogatory toward females or female body parts, even though that's really current slang. I just won't. Or if I do, I really try to limit it. Like I don't like the B word at all, but I've used it like one time. So I don't know. How about you, Mary?
I use the B word all the time. I'm kidding. No, I basically, if someone uses the B word, it reflects poorly on them.
Yes.
It shows their character.
Yes.
So it's not something that Yeah, because I don't like it when women are, I don't, not just even men too. I don't like it when people use derogatory labels on people.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
everybody, I think I'm getting a little noise from, Constance, she's back. So I'm going to pass it to Constance, but before we do, can we tell Marlene thank you?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I really had fun.
I love this book, and everybody make sure you read it and get it, and especially from Mysterious Galaxy.
Wait.
Hey, yes, point down below.
Oh, yes,
That's where we
right
all
there.
collectively
My
get to
button.
do this.
We're personalizing them too. So
Yes, which is a very rare thing to do.
thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Marlene. Thank you so much, Mary. And
It was
thank you
fun.
to all of the readers who
It
joined
was
us.
fun. Can we hang
Thank
out here
you.
every night?
Right, I know. It's like I always have to come on, and I'm like, I don't want to end the event, but I know I have to. But we're having fun, so I have to just rip it off like a band-aid, as I said earlier.
Rip it off like a band-aid.
Exactly.
Get out of here.
But I will take
And
us
thank you
out.
all
Thank
you guys for
guys
your
so
questions
much.
too.
Thank you guys. It was
Exactly.
really fun. I appreciate it.
And go out and buy the book, everyone.
Yes.
We'll see you next time.
Support your independent bookstore.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.